Hello, moms. Welcome. I'm Brianna. I'm an empowerment coach for teen girls and young women. Hopefully, you don't get sick of me always saying that, but there are always new moms that are coming into this group. So I feel like I always have to say that so you know who I am. This is an important Facebook Live topic. I know I say that a lot about everything that I talk about, but this is for real. This is really important. What you need to know, what you need to understand, what you need to do to protect your daughter from abusive relationships. I wasn't planning on doing this Facebook Live. I thought this morning, I think it's an important topic that needs to be talked about. I feel like it's important that we have this conversation now. I'm hoping that some of you moms are able to join me live, because just like the Facebook Live that I did yesterday, it was really nice. It was really interactive because there were moms that were able to join the conversation and ask questions, bring comments into it. And that's what I want these Facebook Lives to be like. But the reason I decided to do this Facebook Live is because there's been a couple of posts. There was one yesterday, and I really just want to acknowledge the mom who wrote the post, because I know it takes a lot of vulnerability for a lot of you moms to open up in the way that you do in this group. And I just want to say, thank you. I acknowledge you for it takes some bravery. It takes courage to come out and write these posts when there are some really major issues that are going on with you, at home with your daughter, whatever it may be. And there was just the post that I read last night really just struck a chord with me. And it was about her daughter being in an abusive relationship. I think it was for 3 years. And now what her daughter is doing, I think they're going to court or they're fighting it or whatever. And her daughter is being so brave. And it's amazing, but I can feel for the mom who wrote that and how awful those 3 years must have been, when her daughter was going through all of that. And so this is an important topic that we need to talk about. We need to talk about this more than just this one Facebook Live, because here's the deal with abusive relationships. Prevention is key. When your daughter, I don't want to say when, but let's say if your daughter is to ever get, and I hope to God she doesn't ever get into an abusive relationship, but if she ever does get into an abusive relationship, trying to get her out of it when she's already in it is 1,000 times harder than doing the prevention work before she ever meets the guy that is gonna, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know, but it's going to make, her really hard. It's going to make it really hard for her to leave when she's already in the relationship. Does that make sense? So the whole thing with this is it's the prevention. It's what are you going to do before to make sure that your daughter doesn't ever get into an abusive relationship, okay? There are things that, there's a couple of things that I want to talk about. If you're joining me live, let me know you're here. I want to make this an interactive conversation. So I would love if you have comments, if you have questions, whatever. If you're not able to join live and you're watching the replay, please, you can still leave a comment below. I do want to make this a conversation, hopefully. So the first thing that I want to talk about with abusive relationships is that moms, you have to model what it looks like to have a good, healthy relationship, because whatever relationship is going on with you at home is what your daughter is going to see, and what your daughter is going to recreate. Chances are she's going to recreate that somewhere within her own relationships. Not always, but yes, a lot of the time. So moms, if you are in an unhealthy relationship, if there is abuse going on in the family right now, whether it's verbal abuse, whether it's physical abuse, emotional abuse, mental abuse, whatever it is, your daughter is seeing all of this, okay? It's really important that if you want your daughter to one day be in a very healthy relationship, you have to model that to her. You have to model what it looks like to be in a good, healthy relationship. That is key. That's first and foremost what has to be done, okay? So moving, on top of all of, or after that, what really needs to happen is the whole self-esteem piece. I can't say that word. Self-esteem piece, okay? Yesterday, I did a really amazing Facebook Live all about self-esteem. If you did not see it, please go and watch it. It was really, really good, and I loved it too because there were so many moms that joined us for that Facebook Live. So I talked a lot about self-esteem and how it affects every single aspect of your daughter's life. But we have to look at the self-esteem piece to really understand what's happening with how is your daughter even being, how would she ever find herself in an abusive relationship? How is that even possible, right? So it all goes to self-esteem. And there are some pieces that I want to talk about in regards to self-esteem, okay? So the first thing is boundaries, okay? Boundaries are crucial. Now, boundaries is something I actually talk about this in my free empowerment masterclass series. So I won't be talking too much about boundaries, but I want to talk a little bit about this because it's so important for your daughter, whether she's dating right now or whether she's not, whether she's, it's important for her to understand what healthy boundaries look like, right? So boundaries is really important because your daughter has to know that she has the right to say if something doesn't feel good to her, she has the right to say, no, I don't want to do this. This doesn't feel good. She has the right to say no and to use her voice and to speak up for herself. But if she hasn't worked on her self-esteem, if she hasn't worked that, it's almost like a muscle, right? If she hasn't worked that muscle, she's not going to feel confident to speak up in that way in the relationship that she finds herself in. So boundaries is also how many of your daughters are in relationships right now and they're together 24/7, right? There's no separation. There has to be some sort of separation in relationships because if there's no separation, then there's no healthy boundaries. And your daughter is going to, what happens with a lot of girls, a lot of teen girls and young women fall into this. What happens is they get into these relationships. They're all encompassing. They forget all about their friends. They forget about school. They forget about everything else that's going on in their life. And it's all about the boy, right? It's all about their relationship. This is it. This is everything, right? But what happens if this relationship is not healthy? What happens if whoever your daughter is dating is not good for her? Then what? And she's gotten rid of all of her friends and she's not really giving it her all in school anymore. The boundaries piece is so important, okay? So that's one thing. Here's another thing that's so important. Self-awareness is huge, okay? Your daughter has to have self-awareness to understand what is going on in the relationship, right? If she dates someone who shows warning signs, maybe the guy is jealous all the time, maybe he's moving the relationship way too quickly. Like they just start dating, and then the guy wants to be in a relationship with her, within a week. Okay, that's a red flag. So moving the relationship too fast, if he's too controlling, if he's manipulative, dishonest, if there's any sort of verbal abuse going on, any sort of abuse. I mean, these are all red flags that should make your daughter run for the hills, right? But if your daughter is not self-aware and doesn't understand that this, what I have just described, is not a healthy relationship, then she's going to stay in it. So why do girls stay in these unhealthy relationships? It goes back to the self-esteem piece, okay? If your daughter, I talked about this yesterday, if your daughter is not loving herself, if she doesn't know how to love herself, and in walks this charming guy, right? And he sweeps her off her feet and he was like, oh my God, you're so beautiful. Oh my God, I want to spend all my time with you. Oh my God, like you are amazing. You're everything. There are some real characters out there that can charm their way into your daughter's heart. And once they have your daughter's heart, it's like, it's really hard for your daughter to get out of the relationship. So what oftentimes can happen is that, a guy will put all of this charm, right? They will make your daughter just be like, just over the moon, right? In this relationship. And then a little while later, the true colors will come out, right? The true colors will come out from whoever she is dating. And if it's not so pretty, if he's not treating her right, she's going to have a hard time getting out of it. Why? Because where is her self-esteem? If she is not loving herself, if she doesn't know how to love herself, and this boy is giving her that false sense of love, then she doesn't want to let go of it. She won't want to let go of it. It's like a lifeline. She doesn't know how, right? And I find this, this happens so often when girls or young women, they don't have that self-esteem and they get this like false sense of love from, let's say, a boy that they're dating, right? And they cling to it. They don't want to let it go because there's a void that's inside of your daughter if she's not loving herself. So she's going to try and fill that void with, well, it could be a bunch of different things. It could be in relationships, right? When she's dating, it could also be, she could also try to fill that void with other things like food, alcohol, drugs, sex, whatever, right? There's a lot of different ways that your daughter can try to fill that void in her life. But going back to the topic of this Facebook Live with abusive relationships, once your daughter is in an abusive relationship, it is so hard for your daughter to get out of it because her self-esteem is going to be low if she's already with someone that is putting her down, that is not respecting her, right? How does she have enough self-esteem to get out of it? This is something that's also really important. It's like, there's a saying out there. It's like, we teach people how to treat us based on what we allow. Okay? So if someone is disrespecting your daughter, right? If she's in a relationship with someone who treats her horrible, disrespects her, lies to her, right? Doesn't honor the amazing person that your daughter is, if she is in a relationship with someone like this, then she has allowed this sort of behavior to continue if she is staying in that relationship, right? Going back to boundaries, what I said before, right? Healthy boundaries. If I go out on a date, let's say, and there's a guy who doesn't treat me well, then I have to say something like, this doesn't work for me, you can't talk to me like that, right? I have to say something. There has to be some boundaries of what I allow and what I don't allow, right? It's kind of like what you put up with and what you don't put up with. But if you don't have any boundaries, then people are going to treat you however they want to treat you, because you never have said what you want, how you want to be treated, right? So it's so important that your daughter it's going back to self-esteem. Self-esteem is everything. Your daughter needs to work on her self-worth, her self-value, how she sees herself, right? The relationship that she has with herself is the most important relationship that she will have in her entire life. Most girls, most young women don't see it that way. They see it as all of these other relationships, like the relationship that I have with that boy over there, or these other relationships, those are the most important things. And it's not how it works. So if your daughter is not working on that relationship that she has with herself, this is what allows her to get into these toxic relationships, these unhealthy relationships, right? These relationships that don't serve her, that don't honor her, that don't fill her up inside. It all goes back to this one thing. It's her self-esteem. How she sees herself, how she feels about herself. Where is her self-worth? Where is her self-value? And again, like I said before, it's much easier to teach your daughter all of this before she gets into that relationship where you can't get her out of it, right? How many of you moms that are watching this, whether you're live or on the replay, how many of you have daughters who have gotten into some unhealthy relationships and there was nothing that you could do to get your daughter out of it? She was not listening to you. She was going to do her own thing. It's very difficult after the fact. That's why it's so important, with like the self-esteem. For myself, when I was younger, when I was a teen girl, I didn't exhibit all of these signs that I was like troubled, right? I mean, on the outside, it didn't really look like anything was wrong. I wasn't having sex. I wasn't doing drugs. I wasn't doing alcohol. I wasn't partying. I wasn't skipping curfew. My parents didn't even have a curfew for me because I was such a good girl, right? So I didn't do any of those things, but my self-esteem was still struggling. So I want to say something, and I want to make this very clear, that whether your daughter is struggling in her life or she is not, I feel like self-esteem, the Free Empowerment Masterclass series that I have, every single one of you should sign up for that if you haven't already, right? Because the self-esteem piece is not just for you moms that have daughters that are struggling. It's also for you moms that have daughters that are doing great, because they still need to learn self-esteem and how to love themselves. Prevention is key. Get to your daughters as early as you can because they need to learn this stuff. It's not being taught at schools. It's not being taught out there. So where are they getting this? This is so important, and it can change your daughter's life when she starts learning how to love herself. Okay? I had another mom, she wrote, but how do I get my daughter to start loving herself? Okay? Watch my other Facebook lives. Like, I talk so much about the different things that your daughter can be doing to really start to love herself, right? I talk about all of this in a lot of my Facebook lives. So if you haven't watched them, go back and see them, binge watch them if you want. There's a lot of good, useful information there, okay? I want you all to really like get this information, because at the end of the day, I want your daughter to be feeling as best as she possibly can, okay? So if there's any questions or any comments, I see a couple people are live with me. It doesn't tell me who's here. So I don't know if there's any questions or any comments. Please, write something right now. But I just really think it's important, just to kind of recap, it's really important that you moms are modeling what a good, healthy relationship looks like. That's so important for your daughter to see that, because in order for her to create these like healthy relationships in her life, she has to see that at home. So important. And the other things that, I talked about with the boundaries, that's huge. The self-awareness piece, your daughter needs to understand herself. She needs to understand people. And like, if someone is treating her badly, she needs to know that that is not acceptable and that she can walk away from that, right? Most girls aren't learning these things. But your daughter can walk away from anyone that treats her poorly, disrespects her, right? But, and when I'm talking about like abuse, there's so many different kinds of abuse. There's like verbal abuse, physical abuse, like mental, emotional abuse. It's all abuse, right? If your daughter is dating someone and that person is, like yells at her, or, just treats her like horrible. Like it could be verbal abuse. It could be emotional or mental abuse, right? That it's not just the physical abuse that's horrible. There are other types of abuse as well, okay? So it's really important. I hope, for those of you who are watching this, I hope that you got something out of this and why prevention is really key to get to your daughters early and start having the conversations that you need to be having with your daughters about their self-esteem. If you don't have a clue where your daughter's self-esteem is at, ask her. Talk to her about this. Open the communication up. If your daughter isn't talking to you, if she doesn't want to talk to you, then you got to bring someone else into the picture, right? That's why I have like Unstoppable You is going to be coming out soon. It's my 6-week online group coaching program. I'm super excited about that. All of the information will be coming out soon. But your daughter needs to be going there. She needs to be working on her self-esteem, because this is what is going to set her up for the rest of her life to have the best life possible. And I want that for each and every one of your daughters. So I don't see any comments, so I'm gonna wrap this up. If you haven't signed up for the Free Empowerment Masterclass series, please sign up for that. I want you there. It's free. It's going to be amazing, and I want you to be a part of it. So if you're watching the replay, you have a comment or a question, please leave that below, and I'll make sure to respond to it. But I'm just sending you all so much love. I do see a comment. Jacqueline, we are going through something like this now. Thank you again for adding to the group. Thank you, Jacqueline. I appreciate that. If you wanna share more, you said we are going through something like this now. I'm happy to answer any questions if you want to elaborate more on what exactly you're going through right now. I can hang around a little bit longer if you want to speak more about that. I know that there's a lot of issues going on with your daughters. Like I said this yesterday, but I'll say it again. It's like, it's a different world from when I went to high school to when you went to high school to what your daughter is experiencing right now, right? It's completely different. Everything has changed. And so we really have to meet your daughter like where she's at what does she need, right? What does she need in her life? What's going to help her? What's going to support her? What does she need to thrive in her life? Like, that is so important. And this is why the self-esteem piece, I talk about this all the time, because this is the most important thing that your daughter needs to learn for herself. So I don't see any other comments from you, Jacqueline, but you're welcome to leave another comment, or if you want to private message me, that's fine too. But I'm just sending you all so much love. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you guys all soon. Mwah. Bye for now.